Welcome to Moms in the Huddle.
Hello, welcome to Moms in the Huddle, where nope.
Yes, today, pretty much, I'm Erika Morgan. I'm the mom of D1 athlete Samaj Morgan at the University of Michigan. And basically, this show is a show for parents, coaches, athletes that are learning how to navigate this new system of the NIL, new system of college landscape, and different things. So, we want to welcome everyone to Moms in the Huddle. We will remind you we are not experts, but we are experienced. Isn't that right, Jillian?
That is correct. And welcome everyone. Again, I'm Jillian Blackwell, your other host. I just happen to be a mom of three boys, Mackenzie, Jonathan, and Robert. My son, Jonathan, happens to play for D1 University of Wisconsin. I am super excited to be a part of Moms in a Huddle.
Yes. And I will say before we move on, we want to make sure that you subscribe. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We are also on X. We are on Instagram. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment.
Yeah, well, I'm super excited. Again, I think you may have said this already. This is a place where parents and coaches, agents, and even athletes, whether you're a high school athlete or college athlete, this is where you try to learn how to navigate this new thing called collegiate sports, right? And competitive sports. So we're talking about rankings. Mm-hmm. We're talking about recruiting, NIL deals, the transfer portal. We had an awesome show. If you missed that show, go to our YouTube page and check it out. That was a magnificent show. I learned a lot, and we shed some tears on that show. We're going to talk about mental health, and yes, sometimes we talk about, Erika, why parents just need to stay out of the locker room, right?
Yeah, that's going to be a show in and of itself. That's going to be a really good show right there, Jillian.
Yes, it is. So, Erika, what are we talking about today? What's our topic today?
Well, our topic today is Stuck on Stars. Why do we title that something like that? We called it Stuck on Stars because when you are in high school and you're being recruited, the first thing people want to know is, what star are you? You know, when you're in high school, I remember Samaj was a 3-star with actually On3. He was also a 4-star with Rivals. So then you had multiple stars, and a lot of people don't understand what stars mean. A lot of the rankings in high school and them trying to actually rank a lot of our boys, they look at the game performance, right? They look at the athletic traits. They look at the developmental trajectory. So what are they doing, Jillian? They're trying to determine the probability of how they'll do at the college level as well as the professional level.
Yeah. And it's really, you know, when you think about it, my son Jonathan was a 3-star. Even, you know, sometimes he wasn't even ranked. He was a 3-star. And really, that ranking is really a snapshot, a moment in time of how your student athlete, boy or girl, whatever sport they're playing, will stack up against other local peers. You know, it really try to highlight their strength and area of growth, but college rankings carry even more weight on scholarship opportunities for programs, their fit, their NIL deals. So again, keep in mind, if you have a high school student, that ranking is a snapshot. So sometimes students may get a lower ranking and that might impact how they play. Well, I'm only ranked, you know, I'm only a 2-star. It's a snapshot. And so that student has an opportunity to change that snapshot, to be in the gym, to stay in the gym and improve on their game.
Yeah, and that's right. And see, here's the thing. I'm so glad that one of our guests that's coming today is, you know, we're going to have a 2-day. We're looking at it from this perspective, from the On3 perspective. We're going to have tomorrow perspective from 247. So we're going to really look at it for a lot of our parents that are in high school, because this is for you guys where it matters. Now, since the landscape has changed, I am so curious to figure out what our guest today will say about the rankings. You know, EJ is here with us, but I am so excited about that because not just the rankings, but the landscape has changed. Now, college athletes and going into college can get paid from high school, and even the laws coming down from that to where
Yeah.
you may be able to get paid from in high school. So
There's some
rankings is going to matter, right?
Yeah, some states that allow you to get paid as early as high school. And so that's why it's so critical, so crucial for families to understand what rankings mean all through, again, the both of the systems, so they can set really realistic goals for their child and advocate effectively to make sure they understand how their child is being ranked. So focus on continuous improvement beyond the stars. So yes, the rankings and the stars matter, but make sure I think about the last show that we had. What we kept hearing over and over again is he stayed in the gym. He kept working or the gym or the field. He kept working on his game. Yeah. Don't be glazing or stuck on the stars, glazing the star. Stay in the gym. Stay in the field. Stay on the track. Whatever it is your game is, stay focused on that.
That's right. Because we know that stars don't always mean anything. You can be rated a 5-star, but then let's go back and look at the history and the pattern of how they really produced in college, you know, or did they make it to the league? We talked about it, and I think you brought it up too, Jillian. Cam Ward. He went to the NFL. He was round 1 draft pick, the first draft pick, and he was a 0-star from high school.
Wow.
But yet he ranked high as a quarterback when he got to college. Right. So, and that's something that a lot of people don't really take into consideration, because you can be so stuck on stars, you forget that it's still the person that got to get out there and produce the things in which they need to produce. So sometimes stars don't matter all the time.
Yeah.
You know,
and imagine if he quit. Imagine if he said, Mom and Dad, or said it to himself, you know, this, even though I love the game, this is how people are ranking me. And so imagine if he made that decision very early on in his college career or high school career, that I'm not going to pursue my dream. He would have missed out on, who would have foresaw that he would be the number 1 draft pick? Nobody. He's stuck in the game. Instead of being stuck on stars, what did he do? He stuck through the game. And so that should be an indicator. If your child is passionate about that sport, whatever that sport is. Yeah. You know, you are a job as a parent to is encourage them to make sure that they know that they are the greatest thing since sliced bread.
That's right.
Greatest thing on God's given earth, and you are going to make sure that they stay motivated to play the game. So I'm excited about this conversation. Again, my son was a 3-star. Yeah. I didn't know anything about those rankings, but I just kept hearing it. I was like, you know what? Stay focused. Just stay focused.
Yes, and we are going to stay focused. Well, who do we have today, Miss Jillian? Who's going to talk to us a little bit more and educate us today about that?
Well, I am super excited to introduce our guest. EJ has been in the recruiting industry for more than a decade, covering Michigan, SMU, and Texas. He has spent the last 6 years on the Michigan beat, evaluating and writing about prospects the Wolverines are recruiting around the country. EJ graduated from SMU with a degree in journalism in 2013, before landing jobs with the Dallas Morning News, 24/7 Sports, and eventually on On3. And just as a personal hook, I read this and I did some research that EJ actually started his career as a high school walk-on. Scouting. So really, to me, it gave him like firsthand insight into the evaluation process. So I'm super excited to welcome our guest, EJ, to the stage in the huddle. We're super excited to have him this evening.
Hi, EJ. Welcome. Guys. Are you able to hear us?
Yeah, I am able to hear you guys. Are you guys able to hear me?
We can hear you clearly. Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. No, thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for joining us. Well, I just want to make sure, was that an accurate information about how you started as a walk-on?
No, I didn't walk on in college. I did play football in high school. But
okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I did play football in high school. I want to say I was like a NIA D3 level recruit, but yeah, I did play in high school.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. So Erika, I'm gonna pass it on to you.
Yes, EJ, I'm super excited to have you on. One of the reasons I'm excited to have you on, you were one of the analysts that followed Samaj career in high school for so long. You were always compassionate to us as a family. I seen how great you were interacting with the families. I think that you did well, you could do as much as you can as relates to looking and rating Samaj and looking at different things that he had in his repertoire in high school. But I'm excited to have you on because I think you're going to answer some of our questions. I will say that I know that the landscape has changed, but let's start with give us some information about you and what you're doing with the ratings, and if you're a part of the ratings, and what you're doing as it relates to at On3 regarding recruiting.
Yeah, definitely. So On3 obviously is a larger national company that covers college sports and recruiting, as well as NIL, basketball, several other topics, transfer portal now that we have that. We have a rankings team that's mostly made up of Charles Power, Cody Belair, and a couple of other people. And what they do is they are solely dedicated to watching film. That's all
Mhm.
they do.
Wow.
They get paid to watch film and evaluate prospects, give out initial rankings, things of that nature. They do go to some events. I saw Cody Belair at Under Armour Dallas and OT7 and national, recruiting events like that. So they do get out on the road, but that is their sole focus, is watching film, evaluating players, giving rankings. So they don't write stories or anything like that.
Mhm.
They only do rankings. I mean, they will write some stories like top performers from different camps and stuff, but they're not writing, recruiting updates. They're not like national analysts from other websites like a 247 or a Rivals. They'll have a national analyst and he's writing, I think Samaj Morgan's going to Michigan, or I think Samaj Morgan's going here, here, here. That's not what our rankings directors do. They solely focus on rankings and player evaluations. Now, where we're a little different is in how our rankings department handles that. But there's also team writers like me. So, for example, I cover the University of Michigan. Obviously, that is a big program, and I get to be fortunate enough to go out on the road and evaluate recruits across the country, especially Michigan recruits from almost every state at this point. I mean, they just got a kid from Montana, so they're all around the country. So I get to go out and I see different guys, and what I do is, I'll see some recruits and I'll pass that information along to our rankings team. Now I do my own evaluations but they're kind of Michigan specific, how they would fit in at Michigan, how I would rank them versus how our national team has them ranked. And yeah, that's kind of the gist of, me. I'm obviously reporting on whether I think they're going to Michigan or not. But I'm also giving evaluations as well and talking about where I would have them ranked and passing along, pertinent information over to our rankings team as well.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, can you give us like a brief, like we talk about rankings, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, but can you give us a brief history of how the whole star rating system like emerged and what was it originally designed for? Like, what was the genesis? I always want to know the beginning of the thing. How did this all start?
Yeah, so the first of the big three networks, which you have right now, are Rivals 24/7 and On3, was actually Rivals. And even before that, you also had Scout, which is no longer a thing. It was bought out by 24/7, and even Rivals will kind of dissolve a little bit. It's gotten bought out by On3, and that'll take place on July 1st. But the star system, predates me. I was in high school looking at Rivals when, I was playing and looking at the stars and different things like that. So I can't tell you exactly how it got started, but basically what stars are is they give you kind of a measuring stick of what we as recruiting services think your son will become. Obviously, it's not the end all be all, but it's projection based on various factors. And I think it's important to keep in mind that if you are a 3-star, that doesn't mean you're a bad player. I mean, a lot of 3-stars go not just D1, they go Power 4. They start at Power 4 schools. So Maj Morgan was a 3-star. He's a P4 starter. Rod Moore at Michigan as well is another starter who's a 3-star. I think a lot of 3-stars turn into really, really good players. So I think it's important. It's not a knock if you're a 3-star, that means you're still one of the best players in the country. I believe, 3-stars start around number 350 or so. So you're still, ranked as a top anywhere from 350, on down. But if you're the number 350 or number 400 player in the country, I mean, you're still a top level talent as well. So I think it's important to not get lost in that, 3-star versus 5-star. 3-stars are still very, very good players. But yeah, I mean, it basically revolves around high school production, high school film. What you do at the high school level is very important. What you put on film is very important. But I also think it's worth noting that we're not ranking the best high school football players in the country. We're ranking the best recruits in the country. Or when I'm doing my evaluations, I'm not saying, little Johnny is the best player on the field. I'm talking about how he would project to the University of Michigan. Is he a Michigan caliber player?
Wow.
That's a great thing. Say that one more time, because I didn't know that.
Yeah, so when I do my evaluations, I'm talking about whether I think this kid can excel at the University of Michigan. It is Michigan specific.
Yeah.
And when you look at On3 National, they're not necessarily looking at it from a team specific realm, but they are looking at projection. How will the kid project at the college level? So high school production and high school film is very important, but again, we're not ranking the best high school players. We're not ranking the best, stats every night. It's a lot of times the players that put up the best stats aren't even ranked. It doesn't have to do with stats at that level. We're projecting you to the college level, and I'll use Samaj as an example, obviously. But Samaj was kind of such an interesting prospect. I think when you looked at Samaj, he was productive everywhere. He was productive at the high school level, not just at wide receiver. I mean, he ran some wildcat, he played DB. I think he could have played some defense in college as well. So I think Samaj was super productive at the high school level. He was productive at every national 7-on-7 event, every camp. He would win a lot of reps. And I think that's what got Samaj, first of all, to be kind of ranked in that high 3-star, low 4-star range. And he also got the Michigan offer off the camp performance, right, Erika? Like he went to Michigan's camp.
He actually did. And that's the thing, EJ. I wonder, what key traits do you guys look for when you are ranking a high school player? Because here's the situation. I do look at my son. At one point, they bumped him up to a 4-star, but then he was bumped down because why? He did not run a 40 when he would go to some of the places. So I think Rivals had him at 4. You guys had him at 3. But what was hurting him was his track season. You guys probably say, well, he's like that elusive fastness guy. He can get on the field and do, but he was ranked at a 3-star. And you're right. You're looking at the recruiting aspect of it. So it was mainly, I want to know, because it's some high school parents that's going to look at this video. When you're looking at their kid, what traits are you looking for to rank them as a good recruit for school? Yeah,
exactly. And that's why I called Samaj a really interesting case. He's actually the perfect case because he's productive everywhere. His camp performances are strong. His game performances are strong. You have to rank Samaj kind of in that area. But what kept Samaj from being in that, I guess, upper echelon or elite tier is the projection part. And Erika mentioned the track times. Samaj, I think, had one verified track time when he was an underclassman, but nothing like going into his senior year. And it wasn't the best time. And then we didn't have the verified camp time sometimes for him. So I think when you combine the lack of elite speed with Samaj being a shorter receiver. I mean,
Right.
Samaj is what, 5'10", maybe. So those traits, often you look at historical data, if you are a shorter receiver, the shorter receivers that get the best projection, like, you know, a Rondale Moore, for example, is actually a
Mhm.
recruit I missed on. But Rondale Moore is one that comes to mind, that he was even shorter than Samaj, but he had elite track times. And so that
Right.
boosted him up into that upper echelon. So we're looking at projection. A lot of, you know, Samaj could be an anomaly. I mean, he got on the field as a freshman. He was sort of playing
Yeah.
in the Rose Bowl as a
Yeah.
true
Right.
freshman, and that's Samaj. But how many players like Samaj that are 5'9", 5'10", that don't have the elite speed are going to be anomalies? You know,
Right.
for one Samaj, there might be 100 guys that don't produce at the Michigan level that early.
Wow.
So while Samaj might be a special case, you may not have that with a ton of others. So you have to keep that in mind. It's, yes, you'll have players that outplay their rankings, players that are just very good. And with Samaj, the thing I always wrote, and I talked to his dad about this as well, is Samaj, you could see the gain speed a little bit more. You know, it was kind of
Right.
clear in those 7-on-7 events that he had enough speed. And he would just play bigger than his size. I think
Yeah.
Samaj, the thing I wrote about Samaj, and that's the other thing, is in-person evaluations. You kind of get a better feel
That's
for
good.
players. So the thing about Samaj is, I always wrote, he did everything angry. He ran his routes angry. He attacked the football
He
angry.
did. He
You
did.
know,
Yeah.
like and that's good, because, you know, if you're a smaller receiver, you want to play bigger than your size, and that's kind of what Samaj did. Samaj was, you know, out jumping 6'3" wide receivers. Like, he was actually going up
Yeah.
and making, you know, catches in the end zone. So Samaj is a really good example for parents, because this is a guy that was so productive, but that didn't have the measurables or the track times or the 40 times. But not everybody's going to be Samaj. It's
Right.
important to keep that in mind as well. So
Yeah.
we're projecting for who has the best chance to really excel at the next level.
That's good. That's good. So you know, I work for a very small company. Actually, I work for Amazon. One of the things we talk about is that we're a data-driven company. We follow the data, follow the numbers. So how do you take? You talked about in-person evaluation. So how do you have human scouts who take the proprietary analytics, the data? How do you work together to arrive at each prospect's rating? So I see what the data is showing. I can look at all the things that individual has done, and then I physically go out there and see them. And sometimes, you know, there are students who don't have the in-person. So how do you take both of them, then arrive at, now this is how we're going to rate that person?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good question. That's why the rankings change year
Mhm.
round. They never stay the same, because a lot of times we go out and we see guys, and sometimes they're not even ranked at all. I went out and I saw a linebacker who committed to Penn State, Matthew Canoe, and he didn't even have a star ranking, and I passed him along to our rankings team, and now he's a top 300 prospect.
Wow.
Wow.
So the rankings change year round, just based on, you know, how these guys are performing. Like I mentioned, Samaj had really strong off-season events, but it was more the data. So I think, you know, and I think it's also important, like, if you're giving advice to parents, to see what those weaknesses are. Like, I had this conversation with Samaj's father, who was actually a track athlete,
Yeah.
and he and
Yeah.
I told him, I was like, you know, the thing that's keeping Samaj is the track. And he gave a really good, you know, back and forth. He was like, well, you know, I was a track athlete. I remember this conversation like it was yesterday. It's been like 4
Right.
years
I
at this
know.
point.
That's how, well,
But
here's the thing. People don't know. That's how connected EJ was to our family. Like, EJ was making sure he talked to his dad, he talked to me. He was getting the valuable information so that he was able to really say, is Samaj going to Michigan? Or, you know, will Michigan recruit this kid? You know, so you're right.
yeah,
Go ahead. I'm
well,
sorry.
the conversation I had with Samaj's father was the track time. And, you know, he was a track athlete. You know, it'd kind of be natural for Samaj to be a track athlete, even though he really wasn't. But Samaj's dad gave good points. He was like, you know what? When Samaj ran that time as an underclassman, there's a lot more that goes into it than just, and I'm not a track guy at all,
Right.
but there's a lot more that goes into it than just running the 100 meter. He is like, there's a lot of technique, your get off, how you start, all that kind of affects your time. Samaj didn't really have the proper track training at the time
Right.
he ran that 100 meter. So, I think getting the in-person evaluation where, like Samaj, maybe it didn't really match up. Maybe that 100 meter was just a bad time and he
Yeah.
was faster than that. So that's why it's important to get in-person evaluations. Now, there's times where guys just check all the boxes, like Bryce Underwood was the #1 overall recruit in the country.
Yeah.
He had the prototypical size. He was 6'4". He had over 200 pounds. I mean, he looks like
Yes.
an action figure. The arm talent
He
was there.
does.
He
Really.
won a state championship. Like everything was there for Bryce Underwood. So there's guys like that just hit all the boxes with data and in-person evaluations. There's guys that are hidden out in kind of the middle of nowhere. Michigan had a tight end from Idaho, Colston Loveland, who nobody really got to see in person because he was way out there, and he became a first-round draft pick.
Right.
So, I think that it's important to get out. It's important to look at data because if you do work in data, like you said, Jillian, a lot of times the numbers are right, but it's also important to get out in person because some guys might be missed. Sometimes the data may be misaligned. Sometimes guys are out with injuries. Sometimes guys don't blossom until they're seniors. Sometimes guys are ranked high that shouldn't be ranked high. Sometimes guys, are older for their grade, or they've peaked physically, or they're more high floor where there's not a lot of room for growth at the next level. So yeah, I mean, I think both are very, very important.
Well, I would say take us to, do you have anything to do or do you have any knowledge about basketball ranking? Because I know Jillian's son plays at the University of Wisconsin. Jonathan, like she said, he was ranked a 3-star, but and 219th nationally, he was #3 in the state. But I don't think that maybe parents, including Jillian and myself, probably feel like we feel that that's a little low. Like you say, 3-star is not bad because you're dealing with maybe where it go. But this dude was a freak of nature too. He traveled to different places. So do you have any input as it relates to basketball players when it comes down to how their rankings are done?
I don't have too much background with basketball. I did cover it a little bit early on in my career. I can say that basketball is very AAU circuit driven, or at least it was very
Yeah.
AAU circuit driven. So I think that's where a lot of the attention comes from. And also, I think basketball, you're looking at maybe smaller numbers than football as well. So
Yeah.
for us, I think, even into the 800s, 900s, there's still 3 stars. So,
Yeah.
I think with basketball, you're looking at smaller numbers. So, yeah, I mean, I can't give out too much information about basketball because that's not my wheelhouse. But
We
I
just
do.
we just
Yeah,
want
no, go
we just wanted to show my son on the picture. I'm just
ahead.
Well, he was ranked, but here's the thing, Jillian, he was ranked 3-star.
he
And,
was.
and and that's where it matters, where you're talking about stars and what people do and different things. This young man has contributed, done a lot of different things. He's back at Wisconsin. He done
Yeah.
went and declared for the draft, not declared, he withdrew from the draft. But
Yeah.
when you look at different things in the landscape of how all this stuff really works, as parents, we're in the backdrop. So,
Yeah.
EJ, tell us, how has the landscape changed now that NIL been thrown into that? Because now I know you got parents coming saying something to you now, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good point. So I think I guess the landscape has changed dramatically. And I
That's it.
think parents care a lot more about rankings because they have the idea that it can affect NIL, which it can, and in certain situations it doesn't. It's a case by case basis. It's by the school's discretion of what they want to do with NIL. So, yeah, you definitely in the last few years have seen a rise in angry parents that are upset about the
Angry? Wait a minute. Angry, EJ?
Yes, imagine that.
Yes, angry parents. And
Look, Erica, if they're angry in the stands, you know they're going to be angry when it comes to rankings. Go ahead, EJ. I'm sorry.
That's so horrible, though.
Yes, it is. That's why we got the show. We want to talk to the angry parents.
That's right. Go right ahead, EJ.
yeah, and so when I covered Samaj, it was great because there were times that I didn't write the best things about Samaj. I wrote
That's
really
true.
good things about Samaj, but I also wrote, and that's why I had a discussion with his dad about the track times. I also wrote Samaj doesn't have verified track times. Samaj is on the shorter side. Samaj is this, that, whatever.
did.
That's negative. But the thing about Samaj and his parents, where they took that information and they just asked questions, okay, so he didn't run well in track. This is our explanation for it, or whatever the case may be, right? There was never animosity. Everybody knows that Samaj was one of my favorite recruits too, and he never stopped doing interviews because I wrote he wasn't fast or something like that.
Right.
He always was always gracious in all his interviews and stuff. And I think Samaj took the best attitude because Samaj always looked at the stuff and he would just kind of laugh at it and go out there and perform. And
play.
I'm sure he still does that.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure I bet right now, Samaj has seen some criticism off of what he did his freshman year versus sophomore year, which obviously Michigan had a lot of, issues with the quarterback situation. But I'm sure there's nobody more motivated in the wide receiver room than Samaj,
Right.
based on what he's, kind of gotten here criticism wise. So I think it's important to understand that, we're here to build relationships with families, help when we can, but also we have a job to do as well. And, we're not always going to write the greatest things about your son. And that's okay. You shouldn't you should want some honest feedback too, whether it's from, and even if you don't agree with it, or even if you have, a way to combat that or whatever the case is, it's always important to just keep good working relationships and, kind of talk about why we see kids in a certain light. But I think NIL is different as well, not only from parents just getting upset because of stars and rankings and how that might affect their NIL. Just the reporting aspect of NIL is difficult too, because if we hear X recruit is getting an NIL package worth X amount, and we report that, it's kind of a gray area. I don't want to have my hands in anybody's wallet, but at the same time, it is our job to report on NIL. It's just one of those things that's high up there right now. So I think, when we say NIL is a factor for Bryce Underwood, it is, he's the number one player in the country. And that's not his, it's not a problem. It doesn't make him a bad kid or doesn't make the family greedy or anything like that. If you're getting an NIL package, you should be elated. It's just part of the process. I know it's new. I know there's kind of negative connotation, or there was in the past, and I think there still is, of kids chasing a bag or things of that nature. But I think NIL is just a part of it now, and players, especially if you're ranked high or you're highly touted, I should say highly touted. It's not necessarily about the rankings. If colleges view you as one of the elite quarterbacks or wide receivers or cornerbacks or defensive tackles, it's just like the NFL draft. Those positions get drafted higher, they get paid higher in the NFL. And so they're more likely to get, higher NIL packages. Now, I don't think you have to share your numbers with reporters or anything, but I also don't think you need to be mad at reporters for saying NIL is a factor. It is going to be a factor, especially for guys that are, getting recruited by a Michigan or an Ohio State or a Georgia or an Alabama.
Or Wisconsin.
Hey, Wisconsin does some NIL packages too, you know.
Yeah,
So
they do. Yeah, they do. So we talked about the Shamages of the world. We talked about the gentleman that was kind of like under the radar. He was a zero rating. What would you say to some of the under the radar athletes about getting noticed despite any public star status? Like there, for example, I have a son who I have three sons. My youngest son is a senior at Brother Rice. He got injured, right, in his sophomore year, kind of sat down in sophomore year, getting back to speed in his junior year, now going into his senior year. So kind of under the radar, great player, but kind of under the radar. So I know there's a lot of students that may not be, don't have any stars, but kind of like under the radar. What advice would you give to them as well as to their parents about making sure they do what they need to do to play really well and to get quote unquote noticed?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this is, I guess, kind of a two-faced situation. One, I think it's important as a parent and as a kid to understand what kind of level you are going to play at. And that's, you know, that's not to discourage anyone and say you can't play Division One, but also kind of have realistic, you know, expectations. If you're a defensive tackle and you're 5'11", you know, there aren't a lot of 5'11" defensive tackles playing at Michigan or even, you know, G5 places. So, you know, there's no shame in going and camping with Wayne State or Ferris State, you know. And then if you're good enough, you can always hit the portal later. There are, you know, several Ferris State players that were picked up, ones coming to Michigan. So, you know, I think understanding maybe the level and, you know, if you're not getting the attention from the Division One schools, be grateful that you are getting the attention from the Division Two or, you know, Division Three schools. I think the other thing is if you are a high level recruit, chances are that you will be discovered. And how you get discovered is one, go to college camps. It's not just about Under Armour or, you know, any other camp or the Rivals camp or anything like that. Those are good to go to as well because it gets you media exposure. And for example, the Under Armour camp has a partnership with UC Report, and that data is sent over to colleges. So it's good to go to the Under Armour camp. It's good to go to the Rivals camp. But going to college camps is extremely important because that gets you right in front of college coaches. Like I said, Samaj is another example for this question because he did get a Michigan offer at a camp. You know, a lot of players get offers at the camp. So I think that, you know, getting to college camps is important. Getting to some of these, you know, showcases is important, whether it's, you know, a big 7-on-7 or, you know, like I said, the Under Armour camp or the Rivals camp. But more important than that, I would say if you're a skill player, you're going to want to run track as well.
Yes.
You know, running track is big. Anytime Michigan sends an offer to a wide receiver or a cornerback, the first thing I look at is their track times. Without even watching their film, I go and I look at the track times. What did they run? So then I also know what I'm looking at when I look at their film. And, you know, the times are going to vary. If you're a 6'4" receiver, you know, you can run, you know, above an 11. But if you're, you know, a smaller receiver, likely expectation is you'll run sub 11. But, you know, again, we talked about it earlier. It goes beyond just the track times, but that's a good starting point. If you are a wide receiver or a corner and you're running below an 11, you know, chances are you're going to get eyes on you just based off the track time. So I think running track if you're a skill player is huge. Getting out to these camps where you can get verified measurables. A lot of times for rankings as well, it's tough for us to rank kids when we don't have verified measurables. You don't need to lie on your Huddle tape. We will find out.
Right.
You know,
That's
if you
true.
put that you're 6'4" and you're 5'9", we will find out sooner or later. And so will college coaches. There's really no reason to lie. So getting verified measurables, verified track times if you're a skill player, going to college camps, and most importantly, just putting up good game film too. Obviously
Yeah.
that's a big part of it as well. But I think if you're flying under the radar, if you feel like you have good game film, get out to the camps. Be seen. I mean, I remember Samaj drove, or not Samaj himself, but his parents drove him
Mhm.
from Detroit to Knoxville to play in a 7-on-7 tournament, and then drove him down to Atlanta for the Under Armour camp. That
He
same
did.
like swing. So I think parents too, if you're serious about it, Erica's a good resource for a parent that did everything they could to get Samaj seen by
Yeah.
whether it was media or college coaches, to get them verified measurables, get them verified times. So I think all of that kind of is a general broad view of what to do.
And I think when it comes to you really got to ask yourself even beyond that, EJ, too, because they see the outcome, but they don't see the journey of what we did to get Samaj there. Like, people ask, well, what do you guys do with Samaj? Okay, well, what they fail to realize, we hired and paid trainers. He
Yeah.
has a receiver trainer. He's
Yeah.
actually in speed now, and we have put him in speed later on, which is what we know hurt him later. He didn't run track. He wasn't a track guy until his senior year or different things like that. But sometimes people don't want to put the work in order to get the result. And so they'll see it in the end. Oh, well, Samaj made it, but then they didn't see the nights that, I'm saying, he was working for a whole week, 76 hours. So a lot of things that people are not understanding is exactly what you're saying, getting out there in the trenches, because I either you're going to go out there and go for what you want, or you're not,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
Hard work pays
definitely.
off. Hard work pays off.
And
Yeah.
that's another thing, Erica, too, is the one thing I didn't mention is, just building relationships, being part of a group. So like uh, everybody does training. Everybody should be training. That's another thing too. Everybody should be, working with trainers. So even Bryce Underwood, the number one recruit in the country, had a private
Yeah.
trainer, Donovan Dooley. Uh,
Yes.
and that's the thing is, you know, I would go, or I called Dooley, right? And I asked him about Bryce when he was signing with Michigan. And I've known Dooley for a long time. And I said, who do you have next? And he said, I have
Mm.
Donald Tabron. He's a 2028 out of Cass Tech. He's the next guy up. So
Right.
building connections, going to know, or, Samaj played for Sound Mind, Sound Body, 7-on-7
Right.
team. So did Will Johnson. So did Bryce Underwood, Dante Moore, the biggest names, to come out of the state of Michigan. Mostly played for Sound Mind, Sound Body, or a part of the organization.
Yeah.
So anytime I cover a Sound Mind Sound Body event, I talk to Curtis Blackwell, who runs the organization, and I say, who's next? Being
Mhm.
building relationships, being part of whether it's trainers or 7-on-7s, or people you're working with. That's big too, because it allows not just me. I'm not the only one asking that. College coaches are asking that too. Curtis deals with several college coaches at all levels, from Division 2 to FCS to Division 1, and all those
Right.
college coaches are asking, who do you have that can fit for me? And a lot of times, Sound Mind Sound Body, for example, they'll do the bus tour. They'll take you to different schools. They'll take you to
Right.
different 7-on-7 events. So being part of organizations like that can help out as well.
Yeah. We
Wow.
actually had a question here. I think you answered it, but Samaj Morgan is listening to he said, what advice would you give a player to get a higher rankings? We also see Mr. Jonathan Edison did join it. He said, hey, ladies, love it. His
Yeah.
son is actually, he played football as well at West Bloomfield. And Oshun Taylor said, hello, everyone.
Love
So
that.
I will say, when it comes down to a lot of the things that we're doing and that we're talking about with this, I got one more question for you, EJ. How do you feel that parents take you regarding their children as it relates to the honesty that you give? Do you think that they take it in stride and go to the next level to go and do the things that you may say, this is what I've seen? Or do you feel that they get offended with you and then they don't want to hear back from you? Because it's almost like either they want to grow or they don't. And then what was the outcome? Do you have a story where you're like, hey, we rated your kid, this wasn't what it was, and he either didn't make it D1 like the parent was saying, my kid is a D1. We all think our kids is great, right? But sometimes we have to hear the truth. Truth makes you better.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of parents, for the most part, take it in stride. Especially, you know, how many times did I see Samaj? Like 30? I mean, I also saw Samaj. So a lot of times I'll have that relationship already built in, and so we're able to have candid conversations. Like I said, I talked to Samaj's father about the track times and stuff, and there's nothing to be offended about, you know. But sometimes I think parents do get offended, and they think it's personal. Like they think it's a personal attack that I'm saying that, you know, yeah, I even had it this cycle, you know, just because I say, you know, X player has a limited ceiling, or X player needs to improve as a route runner, or X player doesn't have the athletic ability that you look for at this position. You know, it's not a personal attack. Again, we have jobs to do, which is to evaluate players and give our thoughts. And like I said, for me, I'm giving thoughts on, you know, the University of Michigan. And sometimes I do think players are, you know, maybe Michigan caliber, but will more than likely be, you know, kind of backup guys or rotational guys. And sometimes you get, you know, people that get offended off of me saying that, you know. So I think that it's it's kind of tough. I mean, I feel like I don't really care if I upset parents or not. If you want to talk to me, that's great. If you don't, you know, I'll figure out another way. And yeah, I mean, even we just had a kid this cycle too. He committed to a school that has a lot of angry fans, and so I won't say the school, but you know, I mentioned that NIL was a piece in his recruitment, and very vaguely, I didn't even really write a story about it or anything. And you know, that parent just went on a Twitter rampage about it. So, so I just, you know, it's I mean, there was another one a couple of cycles ago that went on the radio to complain. So I mean, these, you know, I think with parents, you have to remember we have a job to do. We're not always going to think your son's great. If that upsets you and you don't want to talk to the media, that's fine too. But I think the best way to handle it is exactly like Samaj handled it, which is, you know, what can I do to get better? What are some things you're not looking at? And yes or no, sir, thank you.
Yeah.
And that was it, right? And you know.
Yeah. Some things that you have to be taught, and that's one of the reasons why I love this platform. So advice for a parent, and I can tell you from personal experience, I was about to comment on something that somebody had was saying to my child online, and my son who plays saw me and he said, "Mom, don't do that because you're just going to start a vicious cycle." Then my husband said, "Babe, he can be the best thing today," and the fans or analytics or whatever can, you know, not praise them the following day. That's just how sports is. And so just FYI to the parents, you know, it doesn't help if you go and rant and rage on social media about just stay away let your child play, let him be the best that he can, stay in the gym, stay on the field, just work on your game. I do have one question, because again, I'm a numbers person that I want to break for just a marketing moment. But when we think about you know, analytics, and we think about where we are with AI and how technology is evolving, where do you see like advanced analytics or machine learning playing with this rating system? Because we're all now AI practitioners. We're using chat. We have some internal AI tools that we're using at Amazon, and I'm sure other companies are using it. So where do you see, with the onslaught of this new technology, how is that going to impact the rating system?
Yeah, I mean, we're already using some AI at On3 in terms of just recruiting and covering recruiting in general. We have a thing called the On3 recruiting prediction machine, and it spits out a percentage of where it thinks the player is going to end up.
Wow.
I I am definitely not an AI guy in terms of like being at the forefront of technology. I mean, right next to me, I still have an N64. Like I'm not, I'm not a big current
Wow.
technology guy,
Okay.
but I do think AI can be helpful in terms of data because it can give us trends. Like I said, tell me the last 100 cornerbacks drafted and
Mm,
what their 100-meter times were in high school. And then
gotcha.
we can
Wow.
kind of make a decision of, okay, are 100-meter times overvalued, or do they give us a really good projection at that position? Or, what is the average hand size of an offensive lineman or things of that nature? I think that can help out a lot. And I think like I said, we have a dedicated rankings team that's headed up by Charles Power, and he did a really good piece of, how did the average, metric compare to the NFL draft when they were recruits, so like what were the averages when it came to hand size or wingspan or things of that nature, and did it project to the NFL draft? So I think that AI can help in terms of that, but it is certainly not in my wheelhouse to be in there,
Yeah.
getting in the mix with ChatGPT.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
That's
Wow.
well.
Well, EJ, we definitely want to thank you for your expertise and everything you provided for us today. We know we've taken up enough of your time. We try, see,
Fantastic.
on this platform, EJ, we try to work everything in and get the questions, but sometimes when the discussions are so good and quality, we end up going over, but we appreciate your time here today. Is there
Absolutely.
anything else, a tip you want to give to any other parents out there, or even the high school parents that are coming in tow this year, rather?
No, well, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, I think we covered a lot there. And I mean, the only piece of advice I would say, if you're a parent, starting off the process is contact Erica Morgan. She will navigate you
I
through
love it.
Football.
through the process for football.
Right.
Yeah.
No basketball.
Right.
Football.
Same here. I
See, we're
don't
the
know.
same.
football.
No
Yeah.
basketball.
I love that.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, EJ.
Thank you, EJ.
All
Appreciate your
right.
time.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, thanks.
Oh, that was so good. That was so good. Well,
Jillian, whew, man. I mean, when you think about it, it's just it takes a lot to really think about having your kid play sports. I
oh, it's a
mean,
lot. It's a lot. I mean, one of the things that I love what you said about making the commitment to your child. You don't see all the stuff, the investment that we make, the trips. I know. How many trips did you guys said you? How many camps?
it was in 1 month. I think it was 12. And then I add an additional 2 because we stopped off at other little places that he wanted to do, like the Under Armour camp and stuff
Wow.
like that. So it was 12 in 1 month.
12
Yeah.
in a month. We're going to start even when he was younger. We're going to start all the AAUs, the hotels.
Mm.
I remember. So again, we have 3 boys. I'll make this really quick. We have 3 boys. My husband at that time was the one that was taking the kids to sports, different events, and he had to go out of town. So he said, "Babe, I'm gonna need you to, pick up slack and
Right.
take my oldest son." And I was taking him to a camp, and we were going from I think gym to gym. It was a travel AAU. And I called him up and I said, "Well, babe, this is a lot." He said, "We're just getting started. We got 2 more boys." I just gave my extra child. And what I did is I put on my hat, my corporate hat. I said, "Wait a minute, let me do the math." And I started doing my research. And it was back then, it was 0.04% of athletes that will go to a Division I school. So all the investment, just starting with my first one, all the investment that we were making, we had a 0.04% that our child was going to go to a D1 school. And so I'm thinking,
Wow.
this is a lot. And so if your child loves it, it's going to be an investment. There are a number of investments we made, but it was my love that you pointed that out, that you're not seeing all the work that's going on behind the scenes. You're just seeing the
Yeah. And you know, another thing we got to think about, Angie Vasquez says, great information. Yes, Angie. And that's why we want to be able to give this to parents. A lot of parents don't want to accept the fact of this. Sometimes what you're aiming your kid at is not the path for their life.
That's true.
They may be playing sports for that moment. It may be something to where they have the sport love at the time in high school or middle school.
Yes.
But then next thing you know, God says, that's not the path.
Yes.
And it stops. And what happens is you'll start getting markers that'll stop that thing, right? You don't know why, but you'll get it. And it'll start happening. And then when you start seeing it, then knowing when to stop. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's not always bad. And it's like he was saying, parents don't like to accept the truth. Okay, you tell me my son is a Division II athlete. I remember, and I'm going to tell this story. I'm going to be brief. I was talking with someone. I can't remember. It was years ago. And he tells me, this is what he tells me. He says, oh, your son played receiver. My son had to be like in the 9th grade or 10th grade. I said, yeah. He said, oh, yeah. He'll probably go to a Division II or III school. Now, that's what he says to me. And I thought to myself, if I would have took that and said, oh, man, my baby going to go. Here's the thing. Now, a Division II or III school, there's nothing wrong with that. You can get a great education. I'm not taking from that.
Right.
But I knew his heart. I knew where he wanted to play. I knew what he wanted to do because he asked me, oh, how tall was I? I said, oh, at that time, he's like 5'8", 5'7".
Right.
And so he like, oh, just based on that, 2 or 3. And if I would have took that and just said, well, that's it. Wrap it up. Let's go on home. Division II or III. No. And that's what I'm saying. Every moment I could say, we got markers to say, yep, it was a check. God was saying, okay, we're going to connect with this person. Yep, it was a check. Absolutely. It was markers when it comes to different things. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So as we began to navigate this thing, it was like the check marks were coming. The coaches, he would get people that wanted to just train them,
Yes, absolutely. You got to know, listen, we're believers in Christ. We got to know when you have that gut. I'm just going to say it. One of our personal experience, we had 3 sons. My oldest son is the tallest of all 3 of them, has a body like an Adonis, can play really good basketball. And I think he loved the game, but he didn't love the game. Right. So he was a math genius. I remember a time, again, you got to watch your kid, right? I remember a time we went to a book fair. And his body kept like navigating to like books like Guinness Book of World Records. It was always the numbers. So he's a great analyst and loves the game. So I'm like, okay, let's get you in doing something like that. But you got to watch. You got to get those markers, right?
The markers.
And so sometimes you even have to have a tough conversation with your spouse.
Okay. And Jillian, that's why people need to come in on our conversation, because we're talking about the real. Gordon Fall says very useful. So we're talking about the real when it comes down to really navigating this thing called the huddle. Absolutely. Everybody that comes here is not going to go to the NFL or the NBA or the MLB or the National Hockey League or soccer at the level of professional, right?
Yeah.
But if you can begin to realize, because I have an older son too. My older son, Tyler, played football. But will you say, do he love the game? No. He said, no, that's not for me. Sometimes that's what I'm saying. It depends on the season you're in with this thing. Yes. But for those that want it and that's hungry, the markers are there. And so if you have a kid that's in high school, and I'm looking at the moms out there and the dads, and you're right, Jillian, sometimes you got to have a talk with the other party.
Yeah.
That if you know you got a kid and you're investing this time, you're going to the 7-on-7s, you're going to the basketball tournaments, the YBL, all the NY you're going and you're doing all these things. If you are doing these things and you see that love in your child's heart as it relates to those things, you have to make sure that it's what they want to do and it's not what you want to do. And I'm going to take a brief pause, because if you're on here now and you don't have your friends on here that have kids, make sure you share this video with them. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube and all our platforms, because me and Jillian not going to play with this. We're not going to be the humdrum moms that will give you base level, and then you're looking like, oh, and everybody wins and everybody get a trophy. That's not the case for everyone. Right, Jillian?
No, it's a lot of work. It's a man, I tell you, like today, can I just tell you what our day was like today? So my son put his hat in for the 2025 NBA draft for the sole purpose of being evaluated, of being rated by GMs, right? And he got to play for at least 5 teams. And today was a deadline for him to say, hey, I'm going back to Wisconsin. And he played with me. I think playing, Mom, I think I'm gonna stay. I said, no, what are we talking about? No, playing, let's go, right? And so when I tell you, you have to be strategic. That was a strategic move for him to say, I want to know, like I know how I am as a college player, but my goal and my dream, that's his dream, to go to the next level. And his plan was, let me just go get rated. Let me go get evaluated. Let me hear what some of these GMs and these coaches can tell me, so I can take that information, work on my game. I tell you, he has taken that. Now, again, only God knows what's gonna come out of that. We believe in God and we're standing full agreement. Jonathan's going to reach his goal.
Yes,
but he was strategic about, this is what I want to do. I'm take the risk. I'm going to go. And I want to get evaluated. So again, the commitment, the dedication, the plan. So if, to your point, Erika, when you say, listen, if your son or daughter is saying, this is Mom, this is really what I want to do, do everything you can to support them.
Yes.
Investing in going to the camps, getting a trainer, getting in the gym with them. While he was here in Michigan, I was in the gym lifting with him.
That's right.
But do it for them and support them. So this was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was. Do you have our marketing moment, Jillian?
No, I do. And why do we do this? Again, I don't know if people know. So I've been in corporate America for, I don't even want to tell you, for a very long time. I have 25 plus years in marketing and change management. I work for Amazon. I've worked for Microsoft. I work for Xerox and AT&T. So when we say a marketing moment, it's because I have the background. We say through the legal lens, it's because Erika is an attorney. So we're not giving you stuff that we've just Googled. We've lived this thing. And so one of the things our marketing moment today is about staying consistent. And I say because of experience. So for those of you who are using social media, and when I say those of you, oftentimes athletes are not even using, they got 14,000, 10,000, 20,000 followers, and they're not communicating with their fans and their audience. And so for those of you who are using social media, for those of you who are not, please start to use those multiple platforms and stay consistent. And what I mean by that is you need to determine a realistic posting schedule based on your schedule, right? So whether it's twice a week, every Monday or Thursday, or bi-weekly on a Wednesday, commit to it and do it. And so when you practice regular updates, what it does, it signals that person is reliable. That could be, if you are a student and college coaches are looking to see what you're talking about, coaches can go in there, scouts can go in there, recruiters can go in there. They can determine and look at your development over time because you're posting information. And moms and dads, encourage your child. You're on social media, you're on a computer, or playing them games. Do something about it. And so consistently develop content. So what you do when you do that, you train your audience to expect new material from you. What is Jonathan talking about? What is Shamad? Now, again, I'm talking to my son because he's not consistent. I think he might have 14, 15 posts anyway. But what it does, it really helps you stay top of mind for recruiters. And if you are in college, it helps people who want to offer you an NIL opportunity to see you, that you have a following, that you're communicating with your followers. So there's all type of simple tools you can use. You can use scheduling apps, a calendar, appoint reminders. You can plan out content in advance to avoid any last minute rushes. You know, we have these children that are in college and or school. They have some very busy schedules. So that's my marketing tip. stay consistent with your social media posting.
Yes. And my marketing, I love that marketing tip. You know why, Jillian? Because it's one of those things that people are not consistent with a lot of things in life, not just not posting, but there's a lot of things that don't get them to the next level. But I
Absolutely.
will say my legal note that I would like to talk about is EJ actually talked about parents being upset with what he's writing about their children. Do you know the First Amendment? Freedom of press, as an attorney and understanding what that truly means, that is protected speech.
Yeah.
So what that means is EJ Holland, On3, a lot of the sports writers that are writing about your kids and that are ranking your kids are opinions by the scouting services like 247, Rivals, or On3. And what it is just the editorial. But understand it is protected speech. But an athlete typically cannot sue for a defamation case unless the ranking is knowingly false or malicious. We're not talking about, oh, well, he didn't run this time or he didn't do this. We're talking about someone putting malicious information, negligent information out there about your kid, like they have a criminal record or they may say something so negative and it's out there. And that is something in which maybe your child or you may have a lawsuit.
Wow.
But you would want to definitely talk with someone about that. Talk with an attorney before you just say, I'm about to go sue. Because everybody want to sue because somebody said something negative about their kid. Okay. Star rankings are subjective evaluation in which courts still view as protected speech.
Wow.
So when you know better, you do better. I want to encourage the parents out there, stop getting offended. Let people tell you where your child is at so that they're able to get better. See, I'm one of those people. I'm motivated by you tell me I can't do something. I'm going to show you how I can. And check this out. This is a good tip for just anybody and everyone in life, but even for your kid, right? Your competition starts with you. So if you're steady competing against yourself, okay, yeah, I know other people are out there, but your competition starts with you. You begin to compete with yourself. Okay, I got to get better on this. I got to get better on this. You're not so busy with all of the noise until next thing you know, you're at a D1 school. Your scholarship is paid for and you're in the NFL or the NBA. Why? Because you were your biggest competition.
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage everyone out there. Yeah, we talked about Stuck on Stars. Tomorrow, we're actually talking to one of the writers, national level. Who is it, Jillian? We're bringing in Alan True. Alan True is a part of the 247 national rankings, the Big Ten. And he's going to come in and talk about from basketball. He knows some tips. He got some information for you, Jillian, with that, and football. And then he's going to give us his knowledge and expertise in that. So we got Stuck on Stars 2 editions. So don't miss that. We're going to have that live. Come back tomorrow.
What time is that?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's at 9 p.m. tomorrow.
Yes.
Right? Yes, it's a little bit later. We might have to have some coffee, but probably not coffee. I'm super excited. Part two is going to be phenomenal. Part 1 was great. It's a great starter, but part 2 I think is going to tie the bow up and give these parents a lot of information, parents and students, a lot of information that they need.
Yeah. And me and Jillian is working overtime trying to make sure we're bringing you great shows, great things you want to hear. Another thing we want you to do, go to our Moms in a Huddle and tell us what you want to hear about.
Yeah.
Put it on our walls. Put it on our personal walls. You have our information for some of those that are watching. Say, hey, I want to talk about this topic. I want to talk about this topic. My kid is going through this. Can we come on and be a blessing or to y'all to tell y'all our story? And if you do have a story or you know someone that have a story and you know it would be for this culture and this group here, let us know. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. That's what we need.
And share.
And share.
Send it out to somebody. So we're super excited about part 2 tomorrow evening at 9 p.m. where we're going to do Stuck on Stars part 2. Again, as Erika said, subscribe, share, follow us. Go to our website, momsinthehuddle.com. If you have a question, a comment, or if you have a particular person that you want to see on the show, let us know. We'll reach out to them and see if we can get them. So any last minute comments, Erika?
Moms in the Huddle, where they at?
In the huddle.
Moms in the Huddle, where they at?
In the huddle.
Moms in the Huddle, where they at?
In the huddle.
That's the anthem. Get them hands up. Hey, see y'all later. Thank you, Janelle. We appreciate you for joining. We love you too.
Thanks
Have a
for-
good one, everybody.
Bye-bye.